r/AskReddit. What is the most stupid way you ever got injured? Twisted my ankle jumping off a trampoline in a gym once as a kid. That wasn't the stupid injury though. The stupid part was that I jumped again, which resulted in 2 fractures. I sucked at sports in high school. A kid on the opposite team threw a dodgeball I tried to catch. Ended up breaking my thumb. It didn't really hurt, but it sure as hell wasn't supposed to bend that way. Not me, but a co-worker I worked out with. He broke his sternum by doing push-ups. All I heard was a pop. And he froze. Started having trouble breathing. Called EMS to be safe. Turns out he moved just right and it snapped. I stepped on a nail, but I didn't realize because it didn't hurt, so I thought I just stepped on tape since it was sticky, and I just kept on walking, and that's when I saw all the blood. Closing my electric window from the outside, using the auto up button. It was 2/3 of the way up already and my valuables were on the front set, so I thought I'd just lean in and quickly tap the button and get my arm out in time. I was wrong, lol. I'm glad phone cameras weren't a thing back then, because there would be footage of me on the internet trying to fish my keys out of my pocket as my arm is being crushed. Was riding my bike home from school. Decided to ride in a ditch going downhill because that seemed fun. My front wheel got stuck in some kind of a hole. I flew a few meters and broke my wrist. I thought my wrist was just a bit hurt, but after my friend helped me walk my bike home, my grandma took me to the hospital because she was worried. And I ended up having to wear a cast for most of that summer. There are too many to count. One pretty memorable injury was drunken knife throwing. I was holding the knife by the blade with my index finger on what I thought was the spine. Nope. Sliced the fuck out of my fingertip. Not me, but my brother basically broke his dick fucking a hole in the concrete floors of a crack house while asleep. About 2.5 years ago, I 3D printed a phone case without properly leveling the plate, which caused the bottom layers to squish outwards. This meant that the design cut into the case was partially stuck together. I got to work cutting it with a knife. Like an idiot. I broke 2 major rules of knife safety. I used a dull knife, an old box cutter, because the blade of my sharper knife was too thick to separate the thin cutout without cracking the plastic. And I cut towards my hand. I think you can see where this is going. The knife slipped while I was applying force to it, and it sliced right down the back of my left middle finger. It was pretty deep, about 5mm at its deepest point. It went over the tendon. But I was lucky because that part was shallow enough to not damage the tendon. I still have a visible scar 2.5 years later. I also still have the phone case, though it's mostly super glue now. My sister yanked her arm out of the socket by trying to remove her zipped up winter jacket with her feet. She lay on her back on the neighbor's porch, lifted both feet inside of the jacket, and kicked hard. When I found her, her feet were still tucked in her jacket and she was rolling on her back like a screaming epileptic hedgehog. Happened a couple days ago. Got home from work really hungry. Decided to try a turkey quesadilla. With all the leftover turkey at my house. Popped that bad boy in the toaster oven and went upstairs to change out of my work clothes. I hear the ding from the oven and dart down the stairs doing a silly jumping run thing, because I am an adult child. I missed a step and ended up coming down full weight on a couple of toes on my right foot. So now I have 2 broken toes and a burnt quesadilla. I broke my arm when I was about 8 due to falling out of a treehouse wearing roller skates. When I was in 3rd grade I kicked a cone and dislocated my shoulder. Later to find out I had a bone tumor growing there. Was running up some stairs. Tripped. And knocked myself out on the edge of a stair step. I was trying to do a dance spin, while stepping on a bell pepper allowing me to spin more. First time I succeeded. Second time, when everybody was looking, I almost broke my leg. And limped for 3 weeks. I broke my toe when I ran into a wall. I hurt my neck by sleeping in bed a little awkwardly. That's how you know you're old. You get injured just from sleeping. Not my injury, but I had sharpened all the knives in the house. I warned my BF that I did so and they were sharp. What does he do? Runs his finger across the blade to check. Sliced it right open. Knife was sharp enough he almost didn't feel the cut. I put some hair gel in my hair. Used a comb and put the comb away. A few days after I moved the comb and somehow cut myself on the now hardened hair gel that was left on it. So yeah. Hair gel drew some blood. Maybe 8 years old in school. We were given staplers. Cool. I thought. I can staple bits of paper together. Then I thought. I wonder if I can staple my finger to the desk. It turns out that you can. Sort of. Anyway. I still have a scar on my little finger 40 plus years later. I was preparing an order of bricks for a pavement. It was half of a pallet, so I had to manually move half of them from a full one to an empty pallet. During that I smashed my finger with a brick. The sharp pain resulted in me pulling back my hand and I hit myself in the face with the brick I was holding. Result. Broken tooth. Smashed finger and an open wound on my lip. This isn't me. But my twin. So it still counts. We had taken a walk to our childhood park from our mother's house. And decided to dick around on the playground for nostalgia's sake. My doppelganger was on the monkey bars. Holding 2 bars at his sides so that most of his body was above the monkey bars. He then had the bold idea to release the bars. And fall neatly through the square space between the bars. Turns out this plan doesn't go so well if you're looking where you're going. His nose hit the bar in front of him with the full force of his own body weight. After already having fallen like 3 feet. His nose was obviously bleeding and he had a mild concussion on the walk back to the house. Freaking out that he couldn't remember certain obvious things. His sniffer remains a testament to his epic failure. Being marginally more Nordic than mine. Found a poisonous snake with my brother. I was 14. He ran away and I yelled, "You're a pussy," as I bent down to pick it up. It bit me and I had to spend 9 days in the hospital. Picking my nose, snapped a tendon in my finger. Sprayed myself with mace because I thought it was some fancy flashlight keychain. Was cleaning my car. A coupe. As I was vacuuming the front seat. I hit the lever to move the seat forward so I could start on the back. The seat lurched forward. Hitting me hard in the temple. Got very disoriented and remember everything getting dark. Woke up on the ground. It's embarrassing how many times I've hit myself on the head with a milk crate at work. I've just stopped touching them at this point because I feel like these things are trying to give me a concussion. The most notable time, though, is that I put the crate on this rolling chip rack so I could take it to the back with me and set it in the return pile. When I went to grab it off, note. It was at the level of my head. I legit swung it at my face for no reason. I spent the next 5 minutes trying not to cry. Shaving. I wanted to hurry. The blade slipped and I shaved off about 7 cm long piece of skin near my ankle. I bled like a motherfucker. But mostly I was annoyed that I have to clean up the bathroom that started looking like a murder scene gone wrong. My scar isn't particularly visible. Just a faint raised line near the edge of the original injury. But now hair doesn't grow there and I don't have to shave there anymore. A win? My dad has a stupider injury, though. He was biking home. When he dropped some papers, he stopped. And instead of getting off the bicycle, he leaned down to reach the paper. Then promptly fell over. He broke his nose, it was never reset. And is now crooked. Has a huge scar on his nose and forehead. I actually came home not much later after this incident. And I noticed the trail of blood coming from the front door to the bathroom and my first thought was, did someone die? Nope. Just dad coming home. Instead of going to the hospital. I was drunk and a window looked at me funny. Drunk me didn't like that. Not me. My brother lunged down our street on a skateboard straight into KTOS traffic. Split his skull open. Not me, but my friend ended up in hospital for trying to cut ice cream with a machete. I was pulling weeds in the backyard. I went to the trash can to throw them away when I tripped over my shoelace. I then fell into the trash can hitting my head. 15 stitches later I had a scar and an embarrassing story. We had a plastic laundry hamper when I was really little. Like 5 or 6. For some reason I always wanted to sit on top of it. But I was getting too big for the lid to support my weight. Was told repeatedly not to sit on the hamper. So naturally I interpreted that as don't sit on the hamper in front of mom and dad. Eventually I fell through, the lid gave way and I fell into the hamper and kneed myself so hard in the face that I broke my nose. When my parents took me to the doctor, he spoke to me alone and asked if my parents had hurt me. Since my story sounded so ridiculous, this did not, as my parents hoped, teach me to listen better. It did leave me with a severely deviated septum. Years later, I was sliding on the wood floor in my socks after my mom specifically told me not to. 4th grade. Broke my left radius and ulnar. I never slide around on slippery surfaces like that anymore or sit on hampers. But I still never quite learned to listen to my parents even after that. Sorry mom and dad. During the brief period in history when planking was a thing, I planked across the bench seats of a 15-passenger van and tore my bottom rib off of the muscle. To this day it's all floaty and weird and constantly reminds me what an idiot I am. I'm a drummer. I was on the road and a full-grown ass man. I tried to grab the funny bubbles in the pot of boiling water when I was 6. Ripped my frenulum while doing some. Well, it's the part of skin that attaches between the head and shaft of your penis and it can only be ripped while it's erect and due to a blunt force to the top of the head. So yeah, I broke my dick and had a man period for a few days. Riding my 3-wheeled scooter down the footpath when I was about 8. I ran over a stick and face-planted into the ground. My whole bottom lip was split open. Lego. Going to the kitchen to get a glass of water in the middle of the night. And Lego happened requiring crutches for the next 2 months. Tore my meniscus after jumping off of a roof to impress a girl. There needed to be surgery done on it. And to this day from time to time my knee reminds me about what an idiot I am. I was bored as a kid and did as kids do. Played with a knife. I was opening and closing it and wasn't paying attention and closed it on my finger. Pretty deep cut. Needed stitches but would have had to sit out the rest of my current basketball season. So I opted to them just bandaging it up. Have a pretty big scar on my finger and won the championship that season. Worth it. Not me but my lil bro. He tripped on a staircase and got very angry at it. He kicked it full force and broke his toe. He didn't have insurance at the time. Transition between insurances, and mom was not amused. When I was 12 I rode my bike without a shirt on as well as with no hands on the handlebars. Obviously I fell and scraped the skin off on the left side of my body against the pavement and broke my arm. Never letting my hands off the handlebars again since. I'm 27 now. One time I was roller skating in my neighborhood. I decided to skate a mile away to this park. No phone. No friends. There was an area of pebbles that I decided to skate on. I don't know why I decided to skate on rocks, as if that makes any sense. Well, long story short, obviously I fell. However, I fell on my wrist, bent it completely back, snapped it, and had to skate all the way home with a dangling wrist, bone sticking out and everything. When I was around 9 we had a tornado in my town and I decided that I would like to get a look at it, so I made my way outside while my parents were watching the news. I got on my bike and went for a ride. The wind was insane and I remember thinking, where is this thing? Before a branch was blown off a tree, smacking me in the back of the head and knocking me off my bike onto some sharp rocks, which cut a fairly deep slash into my right arm. Now bleeding and with a headache I walk my bike back to my house and have to explain what the hell happened with tears running down my face. My grandmother, that was a nurse, had me explain while she was trying to stop the bleeding, and when I was finished she looked at me with dead eyes and said, "You're an idiot." After the storm she took me to the hospital where the doctor put steri strips on the wound and told me that maybe I shouldn't ride my bike while it is storming anymore. Miss you, grandma. I was sleeping one afternoon and all my weight had fallen on my arm. As a result, my arm fell asleep too and got dead numb. The phone started ringing and the sound somehow blended in my dream, causing me to dream about a fire alarm going off. I got panicked in my sleep and that panic continued when I realized that the ringing wasn't just in my dream. It was happening for real. So I popped up, sleepy and confused, and started running towards the source of the noise. Comically enough, My arm was so numb that it was beyond my control and was flailing randomly by my side, crashing onto nearby walls and furniture as I was running towards the sound. It was like running with a jelly-like arm. Like the one Harry Potter had in HP and the Chamber of Secrets when Lockhart deboned it accidentally. Anyway, I don't know which of the billion crashes and bumps was the one that did the job. But that's how I dislocated my pinky. It was a good hit. And my finger stood at a really weird angle afterwards. So I had to go to the doctor to put it back in its place. Hurt like a bitch too. Played with a shaving razor when I was very young. Got it stuck to my lip. Then cried for my Oma who had to deal with me bleeding from my bottom lip and getting the razor off me. When I was in 2nd grade, my friend and I thought it would be fucking hilarious if I slid down the slide head first. Chipped half of my front tooth off and now I have a fake front tooth. It wasn't very funny. Playing basketball in my 30s like a player in their 20s. Refused to let the young kid dunk on me. Got up high enough to block it but came down and tore my ACL in the process. I once stubbed my toe against a table leg hard enough to break my foot in 4 places. Picking up a 7-pound baby. Abdominal hernia. Not fun. I think every time I hurt myself was stupid. But probably when I was a teenager having an apple fight. The apple fight escalated and I threw one of those softball-sized green brain-looking fruit things and my friend threw a tree branch at me. The tree branch got stuck in my leg like an inch and wouldn't come out, so I ripped it out quick and had a gash in my leg. Stood on a cactus. Also jumped into a pool and broke my toe. A couple weeks ago I dislocated my shoulder by laying on an exercise ball. Jumped out of a truck to try to make a basketball shot and ended up breaking my foot. Good thing was I got out of pay for a couple months and got to leave class early. I kind of miss high school now that I think about it, lol. This must have been when I was about 13-14. I was at a campsite and we were walking through a wooded area with some bushes that had been cut back a few weeks prior. But the branches weren't cut straight down. They were more of an arrow shape but pointing out. I was walking through and someone said something to me. I turned back and replied, and the second I turned around I managed to walk straight into one of these branches. But it hit me right at the top of my left cheek and literally a few millimeters from going into my eye socket. And left a little chunk of the branch stuck in this cut just underneath my eye. I managed to dig it out and had to go to the hospital to get it sealed up with that glue stuff for cuts. The really shitty thing is I couldn't go on the water slide that was set up in the next field over. Or go swimming. Good thing is I didn't impale my eye on a stick, haha. I put it down to the lack of depth perception with my lazy eye. That or I'm a turbo mong lol. Edit. Fixed a line. Right, so if you're like me, when there is a railing on a path you'll slide your hand across it for some unknown reason. Well, I once tried this on a spiked fence and cut my hand open because my brain just inserted the smooth rail on top of it. I cut my finger trying to open the hood of our riding lawnmower. There was a plastic bit that was deceivingly sharp and I didn't think to be cautious of fucking plastic. Jumped over a small bush and broke my leg. Just so that I don't get caught while playing tag. Every time I get injured doing deadlifts is the stupidest. It tops the previous time, where I obviously didn't learn my lesson about not fucking doing them anymore. I was rollerblading when I came upon a large Hispanic family walking abreast taking up the entire pavement. Unfortunately I couldn't stop in time. I should have plowed through them and used them as my personal meat pillows. Especially Diabito. But instead I twisted and fell on my tailbone, breaking it. My lower back hurt for 2 years. Me and some of my friends years back, I was about 12, we decided to go sledding. And we thought it would be fun to go sledding in the forest. It didn't go well because my dumbass didn't know that you can't steer a sled and I went straight into a tree. The front of the sled absorbed most of the impact but I still almost got a concussion. My parents beat me after they found out, lol. Slammed a steak knife into my steak out of anger and my hand slipped all the way down and slicing all 4 fingers deeply. When I was in the Royal Marines, the ship I was on docked in Gibraltar. The second night there I returned to the dockyard very drunk. I saw the ship on the opposite side of the docks across about 100 yards of water. Drunk me thought it would be funny to swim across, so I headed for the edge of the dock and dived in. What I did and couldn't see was that the area next to the dock wasn't open water but was a painter's pontoon, a floating flat platform for painting the sides of ships. Approximately 10 feet fall followed by hitting the pontoon left me with a broken arm and 22 stitches and 2 wounds. What hurt more was the abuse from my fellow royals. Ouch. Still makes me cringe years later. What a knobhead. In high school, after a minimum day, my friends and I were waiting for a movie to start at a nearby park. For whatever reason, I got it into my head that running and jumping off the backrest of a bench while catching my car keys in midair was super cool and maybe I could impress this girl I liked in the process. Well, like most teenagers, I was an idiot. After doing it 2 or 3 times, I slipped and my shin rammed into the backrest. This resulted in a tennis ball size bump on my leg. Luckily there was no serious damage. But it was fucking dumb. Also didn't get the girl. Open bracket. Not me. But my brother broke his arm while trying to jump on a football. He just wanted to jump on a football. I dropped an energy drink in a 50 or so foot hole. Then decided I was gonna get it. Dislocated all of my fingers, my knee, and my shoulder trying to drain spaghetti noodles. Luckily the finger dislocations meant I held onto the pot so I didn't also drop it and splash boiling water all over myself. I was in Bali. As many stupid tourists do, I had a pretty minor, thank God, Vespa crash where I bumped into another Vespa and hurt my leg. That night, I drunkenly stepped backwards off a beta high deck straight onto the same foot, with a very bruised and painful leg. The next day I walked directly into a pot plant and split open the shin of the same leg. I'm a liability. I was trying to shake the water off the knife and cut my thigh. I was pretty drunk. Thanks for watching, mate. Make sure to smash that star button for more high quality content.